Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. I'm Reverend Theresa Rohlck, and I serve this congregation as the Congregational Chaplain, and today as part of the worship team. I'm joined, and you will hear later in the service, from Dr. Glen Rideout, our Director of Worship and Music, from Allison Halerz, our Pianist-in-Residence, from Reverend Cassandra Hartley, our Executive Minister, and Reverend Manish Mishra-Marzetti, our Senior Minister. And invisibly present is Mike Halerz, who defies a title but is responsible for the production of these services. So very much present and part of this team. Welcome to all of you, whether you are watching us and joining us on a Sunday morning in Ann Arbor, or it's afternoon or evening, wherever you are, welcome. We're glad you're here to help create this service with us. This community has been in existence for 156 years now, and has continued to be a liberal voice for justice. It has grown and changed over the years. It began as a Unitarian gathering, and later actually 50 years ago this month, the Unitarian and Universalist denominations merged and became the Unitarian Universalist Association, of which we are now a part. The thing that has been constant over those 156 years is change. We have changed and grown. We've added new members. In fact, even during this pandemic year, new members have joined us. Just 2 weeks ago, we were blessed to welcome 2 more members, Hadrian Kinnear and Chelsea Noble. I was very fortunate to be present at the ceremony that we held virtually, where the members were welcomed, got to sign their certificates. We look forward very much to the day when all the members who have joined during this pandemic will be able to gather in person at the church and add their name to the membership book, the book that is now 156 years old. So welcome to them. When we did the ceremony, the first thing we did was to light a chalice, and that was a way of creating the space and welcoming them into this faith tradition. Lighting a chalice is something that connects us to Unitarian Universalists all around the world. And so today, if you would, if you have a chalice nearby, you can get that. You can light any candle, or certainly kindle the divine spark that is within you. Make it burn a little bit brighter as we light our chalice together. So if you would join me and say these words together. We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. The other thing we did when we welcomed the new members is to invite them into a covenant with us. We expressed words of our responsibility to them, the promises we make as ways to be in relationship with them. And I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of this faith tradition, is that we have a covenant that we hold ourselves to. We know that when we mess up, when we break covenant, we are able to come back in love and begin again. And so as we did with Hadrian and Chelsea, I invite you to say the words of our covenant together. Imagine hearing this as if you are a brand new member. And for the first time, it might be a very routine thing for you to say these days, but think of it in that way and be very intentional in your speaking. So if you would join me in the words of our covenant. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another. So welcome all. We will begin our time together with music and singing, with a story, with reflections on the theme of mentors and teachers, of growing and nurturing, and those relationships that sustain us. One of my mentors through his writings, Parker Palmer, describes the relationship of teachers and learners, of mentors and apprentices, as being in a dance. And he says, it is the dance of the spiraling generations in which the old empower the young with their experience, and the young empower the old with new life, reweaving the fabric of the human community as they touch and turn. May we continue to be in that kind of relationship with each other, in that kind of community. We are gathered for worship.
It's time to sing together, and I invite you to the tune of Brian Tate and the words of Paul Gauguin. Now, you may recognize this name. Paul Gauguin, when he was a child, before he was the famous French artist, was a student learning in the Catholic Church to be confirmed. He was learning catechism. Paul Gauguin was lucky enough to have a particularly rebellious teacher who thought it wise to create his own fundamental questions to guide the decisions of life. And even though Paul did not stay a Catholic his entire life, the questions stayed with him. And the truth of them spoke to him right through his last days. In Tahiti, he painted his last work and titled it, "Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?" Let's sing.
Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What are we? 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 What are we? What are we? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What are we? Where do we come from? What are we? Where do we come from? What are we? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Come from? Where do we come from? Where come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where come from? Where we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What are we? 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 Where do we come from? Where are we? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we What are we?
Good morning. My name is Jan Duncan. I'm the current chair of the Sharing the Collection Committee. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share the good work of the program and thank the congregation for their generosity through the years. Our mission. The Sharing the Collection program gives us an opportunity to provide financial assistance to the nonprofit service organizations in Washtenaw County that are doing important work in the community. The offering collected during the first Sunday service of every month is donated to a nonprofit community service organization in Washtenaw County, which serves predominantly disadvantaged and vulnerable populations. Sharing the Collection also supports Unitarian Universalist service organizations like the UU Service Committee and the Michigan UU Social Justice Network, as well as 2 long-term UUAA commitments, Habitat for Humanity and IHN Alpha House. Since the start of 2013, the Sharing the Collection program at UUAA has raised over $190,000 for more than 30 different nonprofit recipients. In housing, Habitat for Humanity of Huron Valley, IHN Alpha House, Avalon. Food assistance, Food Gatherers. Literacy, Children's Literacy Network, 826 Michigan. Health Services, National Alliance of Mental Illness, Packard Health, Michigan Prison Doula Initiative. Youth and School, Liberty Club, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Foundation Preschool, Summer Camp Scholarships, Ozone House, Student Advocacy Center of Michigan, Community Action Network, Our House. And General Social Services, Friends Indeed, House by the Side of the Road, SOS Community Services, Peace Neighborhood, and Safe House. I encourage members to reach out to the Sharing the Collection program with the names of nonprofit organizations that would benefit from the Sharing the Collection program. We can then send out applications in the fall for possible selection the following year. COVID-19 has profoundly impacted nonprofits, but through our continued commitment to giving, we can help our local organizations as they continue the good work in Washtenaw County. Through the generous donations to the Spring 2021 Special Collection, additional funds will go to this year's organizations. Your continued support is needed. Follow the link on the UUAA website, Support Donate Online. Follow our postings on the monthly newsletter and weekly newsletter prior to the Giving Sunday for the upcoming organizations. And we are currently seeking new members. Join the Sharing the Collection Committee. The monthly commitment is small, but our accomplishments are great. Thank you very much. Have a good morning.
The Dot by Peter H. Reynolds. Art class was over, but Vashti sat glued to her chair. Her paper was empty. Vashti's teacher leaned over the blank paper. Ah, a polar bear in a snowstorm, she said. Very funny, said Vashti. I just can't draw. Her teacher smiled. Just make a mark and see where it takes you. Vashti grabbed a marker and gave the paper a good, strong jab. There. Her teacher picked up the paper and studied it carefully. She pushed the paper toward Vashti and quietly said, "Now sign it." Vashti thought for a moment. Well, maybe I can't draw, but I can sign my name. The next week, when Vashti walked into art class, she was surprised to see what was hanging above her teacher's desk. It was the little dot she had drawn, her dot, all framed in swirly gold. I can make a better dot than that. She opened her never-before-used set of watercolors and set to work. Vashti painted and painted. A red dot, a purple dot, a yellow dot, a blue dot. The blue mixed with the yellow. She discovered that she could make a green dot. Vashti kept experimenting, lots of little dots in many colors. If I can make little dots, I can make big dots too. Vashti splashed her colors with a bigger brush on bigger paper to make bigger dots. Vashti even made a dot by not painting a dot. At the school art show a few weeks later, Vashti's many dots made quite a splash. Vashti noticed a little boy gazing up at her. "You're a really great artist. I wish I could draw," he said. "I bet you can," said Vashti. "Me? No, not me. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler." Vashti smiled. She handed the boy a blank sheet of paper. "Show me." The boy's pencil shook as he drew his line. Vashti stared at the boy's squiggle. And then she said, "Please, sign it." The end.
When I was little, I loved to turn my bedroom into my own private theater. I'd bring in friends and we'd pull out costumes and create our own plays and musicals. Or sometimes I would be on my own, acting out scenes from my favorite movie, or as I got older, reading scripts and plays. I was a dramatic child, to say the least, but I was also sometimes painfully shy. So you can imagine that when I finally got my chance to take my first real acting class in middle school, I was a bundle of both excitement and nerves. Thankfully, I knew that I had found my home right away when our teacher, Mrs. McDougall, allowed us to sit in a circle on a brightly lit stage instead of being stuck in a classroom. I also knew that I would love the class because I instantly loved Mrs. McDougall. She's one of those people who puts you at ease right away with her kindness, warmth, and humor. She's also completely no nonsense in the best possible way. One of the first tasks that she had us do was to learn how to project. So to ensure that we could speak loudly and clearly, she sat in the back of the darkened theater and asked us to come on stage one by one and say a line until she could hear us. I don't know how many times I had to do this exercise until I got it right. But I do remember thinking that I must be projecting because I felt like I was yelling. I had never been that loud in my entire life. I certainly came from a culture that did not encourage girls to be loud. But Mrs. McDougall was not going to let me go until I was heard. When I finally got it right, I was so relieved. But I also realized that something important had happened. I had found my voice in more ways than one. Her steady, caring, joyful presence in that class gave me the foundation I needed to jump into acting and drama club and find my people in middle school and high school. It also gave me the foundation I needed to find my voice later on in journalism, nonprofit work, and of course, in ministry. Each day, I continue to find my voice in newer and deeper ways. But it all began with a teacher who was able to both care about me and push me. Reflecting on my time with her reminded me of a book that I read recently by Oprah and the renowned psychiatrist and trauma specialist, Dr. Bruce Perry. It's called What Happened to You? And in it, Dr. Perry talks about how we can't learn and grow unless we can first regulate our nervous systems. This is because when our stress response cycle is activated by intense stress or trauma, we can only access the parts of our brains that allow us to survive and cope, and not the parts of our brains that allow us to do deep thinking and problem solving and being creative. He talks about how there are many different ways that we can regulate our nervous systems, including through singing, drumming, dancing, being out in nature, engaging in rituals, and so many more things. But he asserts again and again that the single most important thing we can do to regulate ourselves and find healing is to be in relationship. He talks about how being in relationship allows our nervous system to calm down, whether it's in a relationship in a community or a one-on-one relationship. And of course, this is what the best teachers do. And not just teachers, also spiritual directors and coaches, mentors, therapists. They all give us the basis of safety that we need so that then we can reach our full potential. I know that I am so grateful for all of my teachers, both past and present, who've given me this gift. And I know that all of us, whether or not we are teachers, can offer the grounding, healing power of relationship to others. May we be able to offer this gift of love and growth, and may we be able to receive it in return. Blessed be.
My piano teacher recognized my interest and talent in music at a young age. I started studying with her when I was in kindergarten and continued well into high school. She didn't let me get away with anything. Her ear could tell the difference between when I practiced all week and when I tried to skip it and sight read the music instead. She pushed me forward when I grew beyond the opportunities in my hometown. She urged me to apply for summer programs and to seek out new instruction from teachers who could challenge me even more. I remember one of my early piano lessons when I didn't want to go for some reason. Who knows why? And she let me choose a stuffed animal from her grown daughter's room to set on the piano to make me feel more comfortable. Through the way she cared for me as a person and as an artist, she gracefully taught me to feel, to express, and to make music from the experience of living. When I was in high school, she gave me my first books of music arranged by John Carter and Mark Hayes and told me, when you're a church musician, you'll return to these books all the time. I politely said thank you, but in typical teenager fashion, I was mentally rolling my eyes thinking, what? I don't want to do that. Fast forward a bit, and today I'm working here at UUAA as Pianist-in-Residence. We all teach each other and learn from each other when we're open to it, but I hope that each of us finds the blessing of at least one teacher who can see something within us before we even recognize it for ourselves. The teacher who helps us imagine our place in the world and guides us to the work that brings that image to reality. I do find myself returning to those beloved John Carter and Mark Hayes arrangements quite a bit, as well as many other selections she had assigned me throughout my years of lessons. You might recognize many of them as pieces I have played as a solo, or the music you hear when you think of a favorite story we've told in worship, or the bed of sound softly underscoring a spoken word. I learned many of these pieces as a small child, sitting at the piano in her living room. Each of these notes, the memory, the dedication invested, formed my musical journey. These are part of what music is to my heart and mind, what it feels and sounds like from me. As I play them for you, the tradition continues, and we accompany each other on this journey into deeper understanding and expression of ourselves. Several years ago, I played one of these dear pieces during a service, and Glen took a particular interest. This was the simple, beautiful Prelude in D minor by Robert D. Vandal, which so captivated his attention that he wanted to make it a focal point of the service the very next week. The piano was moved up onto the chancel, and we both played the piece, seamlessly handing the melody to each other in the middle of the prelude, so seamlessly that, if you weren't looking, you might not even realize that the pianist who started the piece was not the same one who finished it. Glen spoke about how he found this piece through me, and how I found this piece through my teacher. What he didn't realize is that my beloved teacher had passed away just a few months before. This touching mention of my teacher caught me off guard, and the memories of the many gifts she had given me throughout the years came rushing back to the top of my mind. The music, the encouragement, the challenges, the laughter, and the love. The floodgates were opened, and I was overcome with tears. I cried in joy and sadness throughout the rest of the service, at the memories she and I shared alone, and how widely those memories will live on in our lives and in the sounds we pass on. I think that was the first moment I could truly see what an impact she had on my life, and how the gifts she gave me continue to resonate through all who hear my art, my colleagues, myself, and my community. That's you. A teacher's presence stays with their students for years to come. Whose wisdom sings and speaks through you? Whose lessons are we learning simply because we can see their gifts in you?
What are the roots that ground us, nourish us, that help us grow? And how do our human connections with one another, how are they a source of such nourishment and growth? This is one of the questions we hold as we reflect today on the nature of teachers, mentors, those who have nurtured us and help us move into our own flourishing and growth. And as we continue to hold that topic, that question, I want to share with you some words by Parker Palmer, a brief passage from his book, The Courage to Teach. He writes, "Good teachers possess a capacity for connectedness. They are able to weave a complex web of connections among themselves, their subjects, and their students, such that the students can learn to weave a world for themselves. The methods used by these weavers can vary widely. They may be lectures, Socratic dialogues, laboratory experiments, collaborative problem solving, maybe creative chaos. The connections made by good teachers are held not in their methods, but in their hearts, meaning heart in the most ancient sense, as the place where intellect, emotion, spirit, and will converge in the human self." Such beautiful words by Parker Palmer. True teaching residing, lying in the connectedness of human hearts, helping forge a connection between intellect, spirit, emotion, and will, all of those converging together in our very being. Beautiful understanding of what the best mentors, teachers, and nurturers among us are able to achieve. Today's theme and topic reminded me of my early days in the ministry, during which I got to meet one of my close spiritual friends and mentors, who some of you in our community have had a chance to meet, my good friend Hunter Flournoy. I was on a spiritual retreat, and Hunter was one of the spiritual leaders helping organize and lead this retreat. Now, back in those early days, the paradigms that I was holding kind of implicitly around spiritual leaders, spiritual teachers, were probably very deeply rooted in and connected to my experiences of Hinduism, in which a spiritual leader or teacher is deeply revered, treated with a great deal of reverence, at times deference, certainly deep gratitude, out of a recognition that moving into that kind of role in society is not an easy one, and that it involves many personal sacrifices. So out of an implicit recognition of all of that, in the Hindu tradition, there's an embodiment of gratitude and deep reverence for those who are our spiritual leaders and teachers. So holding these as kind of implicit understandings, I'd had a beautiful weekend with Hunter and the other spiritual leaders who were organizing and providing programming. The time came to say goodbye. And in Hinduism, some of you may be familiar with the greeting of Namaste, the folded palm. Now, this gesture means many things. It means both hello, and we use it at goodbye too. When you're saying goodbye, we can say Namaste. It's also a recognition of, I see the beauty in you, the wisdom in you, the spark of the universe in you, light, love, compassion, whatever it might be. It's more than just a greeting. It is also a spiritual gesture. That spiritual gesture, frequently with those that we consider elders, either by age or by spiritual attainment, spiritual wisdom. The folded palm is usually combined when greeting or saying goodbye to an elder, we touch their feet. It's a form of bowing ourselves, prostrating just briefly. It's a brief moment, but a recognition. You can think of it almost in the Western sense of learning at someone's feet, kind of the way we think of that phrase. We think of that as like a discipleship almost, that I'm recognizing your eldership, your elderhood in our relationship. In a way, I'm in a place of humility. I can see myself as a disciple, as a place of humility and gratitude. As I was moving towards departing this retreat, I offered exactly those gestures to Hunter in deep recognition of the wisdom that he had shared with me. I offered namaste in a brief bow, a brief touching of his feet. No sooner had I lifted back up, he prostrated himself fully in front of me, flat on the ground, in full supplication, bowed before me, touching my feet. Now, in Hinduism, this has an additional connotation. You do that kind of full supplication, full flat on the ground, when you are in the presence of such beauty and awe, there's nothing left to do but offer your profound appreciation and gratitude for that breathtaking wisdom and beauty. He offered that gesture to me in response, which left me totally confused, certainly a little unsettled. And as I tried to coax him back up, eventually he got back up, he offered such a beautiful moment of teaching to me. I don't remember the exact words that were used, so this is memory and gist that I will draw on. But he basically said, so many of our cultures do this thing of placing spiritual leaders up on a pedestal. There's only a couple of things that happen once we place one another as human beings up on a pedestal. One, we react to the person being up on a pedestal. We know this well with our anti-authoritarian history woven finely and deeply into our tradition. You can wind up reacting to the fact that a pure human being is up on a pedestal. But more basically than that, number two, there's nowhere to go off a pedestal but down. Isn't it so much better, he offered, just to understand one another as human beings, as full equals? We may possess different life experiences, and in that different experience is learning and wisdom, work in different traditions with teachers, work with different practices. Of course, we have different levels of knowledge and experience around things. We share that. That's a sharing. And we do that sharing best not from a pedestal, but from a place of recognizing our equal dignity, our equality with one another. It was such a beautiful offering. He jarred me in my implicit cultural embodiment, the things that I was still carrying with me about Hinduism without even realizing that I was carrying those understandings in my body, in my assumptions, and my implicit approach to a relationship. He challenged me a little bit in that, and in that challenging helped move me closer to my actual true values that I was seeking to live into more and more fully, my actual values as a Unitarian Universalist. Herein lies the ongoing and really deep beauty of what Hunter offered me in that moment. We human beings, the gifts that we can offer one another from a place of equality, of equal dignity, holding equal dignity in our personhood, the sharing becomes a gift, not a didactic experience of, let me instruct you as an expert, you who know nothing. Not that, but instead, you are beloved too, with the same dignity and equality with which I am imbued. From that, I can share something. Maybe there's wisdom in my sharing for you. Take it or not, as it suits you. As a full equal, you get to decide that, right? That was part of the beauty. Here's the other thing, also so gorgeous. when those who have nourished us, cultivated us, shared in ways that have been deeply meaningful, when we recognize and see them in their full humanness as people with joy and beauty, with challenges and struggles of their own, the fullness of their humanity reminds us that what they are embodying for us, the gifts that they have shared with us, are not unattainable. They are not something that only the few can strive for and ever achieve in their life or their embodiment, but rather as a true equal. I wonder how this beautiful human being who has provided me so much wisdom, support, learning, growth, how did they arrive at that? What are they embodying? What types of experiences did they draw on? Is there anything in that that I might learn from myself? The path is open. For as equal human beings, we can companion each other side by side, modeling what flourishing and growth looks like for one another. May we continue to hold the beauty, the artfulness of those who have taught and mentored and nurtured us well in our hearts and in our bodies.
Our time together is coming to a close now, but we invite you to continue connecting by joining us for Social Hour at uuaa.org/social hour. This is a great way to get to know each other more deeply through guided, small group conversations. If you're new to our congregation and you want to learn more about us, you can also let the Social Hour host know so that they can invite you to a special breakout room for newcomers. Today, we have shared some stories of teachers who have deeply impacted our lives, and we invite you in Social Hour to share some stories of teachers who may have impacted you. But as we've explored today, learning goes in both directions, and we don't just learn from teachers. Any caring relationship can offer us an opportunity for learning and growth. That's one of the many joys of being in a community like ours. We offer one another a web of relationships that can both ground us and stretch us. This is a place where we can be both supported and challenged to be our best. If you would like to give to continue supporting this important work, you can go to uuaa.org/giving. Thank you for your generosity and for being part of the web that we are weaving together. As we go forward into the week ahead, may we give gratitude for all the teachers who have touched our lives. And may we continue to honor them by offering that same caring and nurturing to all of those around us. May it be so, and blessed be.